Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 1990 Nissan Pulsar GTI-R. Now this is part of the N14 model range that was produced between 1990 and 1995. This version was a homologation vehicle that was made between 1990 and 1994 in order to enter the World Rally Championship under Group A rules. 500 of these homologation models were made, and you can visually differentiate it from the standard vehicle in terms of its rear spoiler, bonnet scoop and altered front and rear bumpers. But it's more than just a visual change, as we'll talk about soon. But in terms of typical day-to-day stuff, interior wise it's fairly decent. It's got all the equipment you could expect from a car from this period. Well, yeah, plenty of space. Being a Nissan, it will be well built as well, even though the interior is really rather bland, but I'll forgive it for that. It's got a decent amount of rear leg room as well, as you can sort of see through the rear window there. And it's got a decent sized boot as well, even though the rear wheel, spare wheel is kind of in an awkward position. There's still a fair decent amount of space there as well. But mechanically, yeah, this is massively different to the standard vehicle. Not only does it have all-wheel drive, but it also has a formidable engine. It's a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine producing 227 horsepower and 209 pounds-feet of torque. So yeah, you would be looking for another 10 or so years until you find a hot hatchback with more power than that. Granted, it's not the most powerful in terms of torque. A Ford Escort RS Cosworth has 15 extra pounds-feet of torque, but that has slightly less horsepower and slightly more in the way of weight. So yeah, this is easily the fastest hot hatchback of its time. And only the likes of a Renault Sports Clio V6 or a Volkswagen Golf R32 would eventually beat this in terms of raw horsepower and torque, but even they were heavier than this. So yeah, it's a formidable car in its own right, and especially in terms of competition in terms of hot hatchback cars, but also in terms of other vehicles from the same period, which I'll talk about when we get out into the open road. And in terms of weight, it only weighs 2,734 pounds, which is, yeah, again, really rather lightweight for a car of this type, especially when you consider it's got all-wheel drive and a turbocharged engine. So yeah, nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. Now this car is pretty damn good in terms of acceleration alone, principally because of the all-wheel drive system and the lack of weight, but also the power as well does help. Again, if it was even more powerful, this would be a legendary car, but yeah, it's the all-wheel drive and the lack of weight that really helps it sail as quickly as it does. And especially, again, like I said, in terms of other hot hatchbacks from the time and other sports cars in general, to be honest. And I'll give you a little bit of time to listen to this car, because it's got a pretty nice sounding engine. So yeah, sounds pretty good, especially for a car with only a single exhaust. But it's acceleration that really impresses. 0 to 60 in 5 seconds dead, 0 to 114.2 seconds, and going to a top speed of 151 miles an hour. Now granted, that 0 to 100 time could be a little bit better. There are certainly other cars from the same period that were quicker than this in terms of 0 to 100, and obviously the top speed, again, there are better cars from the same period than this that could go a lot quicker than that. But in terms of 0 to 60 time, yeah, you'd be looking at beating the likes of a Mazda Savana RX-7, a Subaru Legacy RS, a BMW M3, a Ferrari 512 Testarossa, and a Nissan Silvia Club Ks, which, yeah, is formidable. Now granted, it doesn't beat the Ferrari by much, it's only 0.020 of a second quicker than that Ferrari, but the fact that you've got a Nissan Pulsar of all things that is quicker than a Ferrari, which will be infinitely more expensive, is really rather impressive. And yeah, even post 2000 hot hatchbacks would struggle to keep up with this. A lot of them are slower than this. So yeah, it's a formidable driver's car in a lot of ways. And yeah, the acceleration is the main way it is as good as it is. But it is also, in terms of handling, really rather good as well. You've got that all-wheel drive system giving you all of the grip in the world. Also means that, unlike some other hot hatchbacks from the time, you don't just have the power going through the front wheel, so you've got no real torque steer, and yeah, all the grip in the world to handle not just that power, but any kind of tactics that you try and give it in terms of cornering and speed, 'cause it will just hang on in there. Obviously I'm being a bit overzealous, but yeah, you know what I mean. Especially in terms of normal speeds, you'd have no problem whatsoever keeping this on the straight and narrow, no matter what conditions you were coming up against. So yeah, I have very little in the way of issues with this car. Sure, the interior is a little bit bland and the looks of the thing are a little bit garish. It's, you know, it's hardly a subtle looking vehicle, but hot hatches kind of are allowed to get away with that because yeah, they're meant to be fun, they're meant to be loud and proud, and yeah, this is all of that and more. So yeah, it's a superb vehicle. You can get it currently in the Forza Festival playlist. You only have to get 50% at the current season to get it, which is not all that much if you, especially if you've done the multiplayer and the lap time thing or whatever it is for the Ford Cougar. So yeah, get out there and get this car because it is incredible. It is easily one of my favourite hot hatches from the time, and blows away all of the other competition in terms of acceleration, top speed, and handling. So yeah, it's well worth your effort. Just a shame that really that when this car was brought over to Europe and especially the UK, it was called the Sunny GTI-R, which is easily one of the biggest downgrades in names ever, from Pulsar to Sunny, because Sunny is an awful name. But yeah, that apart from that, yeah, it's a brilliant vehicle, and yeah, highly recommend trying it out, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.